Welcome to Context. I'm Bakhtiar Sonov. On the eve of the Muslim holiday of al-Adha, Israel has launched a series of strikes on southern Beirut, an area it claims houses underground drone production facilities used by Hezbollah. This marks the fourth Israeli air assault on the Lebanese capital since a November ceasefire with Hezbollah was declared. Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun has strongly condemned the attack, calling it a violation of international accords and a provocation on the eve of a sacred religious festival. Meanwhile, Israel's defense minister has made it clear there will be no peace in Lebanon until Israel's security is guaranteed and Hezbollah's drone capabilities are dismantled. At the same time, another front of the region's long-standing conflict is seeing cautious diplomatic movement. Hamas, after responding with changes to a recent Israeli proposal, has declared its readiness to enter new negotiations mediated by the United States. The Palestinian group seeks a permanent end to hostilities in Gaza, while Israel has so far only agreed to consider a temporary 60-day truce. To help us unpack these critical developments, we are joined from Washington, D.C. by Hamdi Rifai, Government Relations Executive Director for AnewZ Strategies and a respected foreign affairs analyst. Hamdi Rifai, welcome to Context. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be with you today.
Thanks a lot. Hamdi Rifai, why do you think Israel chose to target Hezbollah's drone facilities now? Is this a part of a broader escalation strategy?
I don't think that that Israel has just targeted Hezbollah's drone facilities now. This has been part of a pattern of Israel degrading the ability of Hezbollah to operate within Lebanon. I think now we're seeing an additional attack or strike on Hezbollah in Lebanon, because what we've seen is that the Lebanese government has been weak in degrading Hezbollah in Lebanon. I think that we have to temper what we're seeing, though, with the reality that Israel is not really acknowledging the territorial integrity or international law that applies here. Israel is acting unilaterally to degrade Hezbollah because it claims that Lebanon is not acting. Whether there's any truth to this or not, we don't really know. We do know that the Lebanese government has been in a precarious position with regard to Hezbollah for quite some time, though.
So how likely is it that Hezbollah will retaliate militarily? And do you believe this could lead to a breakdown of the existing ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah?
Well, Hezbollah is going to have to respond in some way. Whether they actually respond, I think, is really up in the air at this point, because the fact of the matter is that Hezbollah is under pressure to not act by the Lebanese government. The LNA is the official state military of Lebanon, not Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a non-state armed militia acting illegally in Lebanon that the Lebanese government and the Lebanese military, the LNA, have been unable to control. So what we're seeing here is a tension between Hezbollah's need to respond, in the sense that it cannot let something this large go unresponded to, yet at the same time, if it responds, it's going to invite further response against the Lebanese government. So, really, whether Hezbollah actually responds or not was yet to be seen.
So how does the domestic political situation in Lebanon influence the country's response to these attacks?
Well, remember, Hezbollah is part of the government in the sense that it makes up 1/3 of a sectarian government where power is divided by religion. So we have a part of the government that's controlled by the Shia sect, which is Hezbollah. We have part which is controlled by Christians and part which is controlled by Sunnis. It creates a tension. So Hezbollah has some degree of legitimacy in the sense that it has a political wing that is part of the government, but it also has the non-state armed militia, which acts contrary to the interests of Lebanon. And so, as I said earlier, there's this tension whether Hezbollah will actually be able to respond because of the domestic concerns of how much additional pressure will come from the rest of the government to actually take action against Hezbollah and demilitarize Hezbollah as a military wing of the government.
Mr. Rifai, is Israel attempting to send a regional message, not just to Hezbollah, but also to Iran and Hamas?
Well, we need to remember that the reason Hezbollah is able to exist as a non-state armed militia is it is supported by Iran. Just as Hamas is supported by Iran continues to play a destructive role in the region, preferring to fight against Israel using proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas and others, to attack Israel. This is unquestionable. It does it in Syria, it does it in Lebanon, it does it in the Palestinian areas. So, you know, this continues to be a problem that is legitimate on the part of Israel, that Iran attacks Israel using these proxies. But at the same time, as I started out, we have to temper the reality of that with the reality that Israel is not respecting international law or the territorial integrity of its neighbors.
So Hamas has now declared readiness for new negotiations. What is behind this shift in tone?
Well, Hamas has wanted a deal for a long time. It wants to preserve itself, not be destroyed. And I mean, as Hamas continues to exist and operate within Gaza, the Israeli government retaliates and acts against Palestinians at large. And that even includes Palestinians not in Gaza and the West Bank. So Hamas is always under this pressure of it cannot fight Israel. It made a silly, stupid mistake by conducting an attack on October 7th, you know, and now it continues to pay the price, and Palestinians at large continue to pay that price. So Hamas wants a deal, whatever that deal might be. It wants to do it in a way that it's face-saving, but whether that's actually possible is really up in the air as well, because Hamas, while it was elected at one point as the authority in Gaza, it doesn't continue to enjoy that legitimacy or authority amongst Palestinians in Gaza.
Mr. Rifai, Israel reportedly only supports a 60-day truce, while Hamas wants a permanent ceasefire. Is there any room for compromise?
Certainly, I think that we're going to see that the two sides will assert positions, but at the end of the day, they're both going to compromise, I think, a little bit, because Israel, it's also in Israel's benefit right now to have a ceasefire. It's under pressure from the United States as well. Nobody is happy to see what's happening in Israel and what Israel is doing against the Palestinians. And every single day the headlines are that they're starving Palestinians, they're killing Palestinians, they're bombing Palestinians. This is what the headlines are. So Israel needs to change that narrative. Israel needs to get the pressure off of itself. Right now we're at a point where Israel has become such an outlier in terms of international law that the U.S. is having to sanction the international court judges to quiet criticism of Israel. That's really how difficult of a position the U.S. and Israel are in right now. They're engaged in acts which are completely outside of the law.
But do you see any potential pressure coming from Egypt and Qatar to bridge the gap between Hamas and Israel?
Qatar has been a good middleman, but I think its interest in continuing in that role very actively is over. Qatar has itself faced a lot of backlash from playing that role of middleman, trying to bring peace and a ceasefire to this conflict. People have tried to associate Qatar with what's going on there and somehow say it's a representative of Hamas when it's very much the contrary. Qatar was asked at one point to have Hamas, allow Hamas space to operate and have an office in Qatar. That really has worked to its disadvantage. People have associated Qatar with Hamas and terrorism, even though that's not the case. Egypt, on the other hand, whether it can play any kind of real role is yet to be seen. In the past, it has tried to play a role of a mediator or third party here, but I think that's yet to be seen whether it can do that effectively.
In your view, what should international actors, particularly the United States and EU, be doing right now to de-escalate both of these flashpoints?
I think the United States has to stop behaving as just a supporter of Israel. Most people do not see it as being a neutral party here to be able to de-escalate this situation. And Europe, for its part, has done that same thing as the United States in the past. It is finally starting to have a more active voice in saying that what Israel is doing is not within international law. And I think it needs to do that to have some legitimacy so we can help de-escalate the situation. De-escalating means not continuing to empower Israel's actions, because this fight is really now become a fight of just Israel against Hamas, Israel against Hezbollah and others, which is a legitimate fight to some extent, but Israel has taken it just too far, one step too many, in that it is targeting Palestinians. So if we want a de-escalation here, really the de-escalation needs to be to get Israel to de-escalate, because Hamas just wants to survive at this point.
Hamdou Rifai, thank you very much for your insights and for joining us on Context. Your analysis has helped us better understand the complex and rapidly evolving situation in the Middle East. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and to all Azerbaijanis, welcome.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us. Don't forget to follow Context for more in-depth analysis on the world's most pressing geopolitical issues.